Are we going, Richard, or not? How's that? No? I can see you now. I can see you now. You're on mute.
Can you hear us now, Bill?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Bill. Yep.
Thank you. I hope you're catching fish.
I'm my toes in the water, Bill.
Try it when the tide's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, the makers markets have been great, and certainly Bridget Kipper, who's doing great work down at the railway station here in Kapunda, is a credit to her organisational skills and her marketing. She's been outstanding, and she's a real gun. And we're very fortunate to have a lady come like Bridget with her skills come into the town and almost revitalise our main street in a minute. She's done a good job. The market is the start of what Bridget's, I'm sure. Also, Triple B FM were there market before last. We had a chance to talk on Triple B FM and get that message across to the wider Barossa community as well, that these markets are taking place, and we would like to let them know that they're very welcome to attend. At this particular point, if I had any comment at all about the markets, it might be a bit controversial. I do think we need to advertise them a little bit broader. Also, Australia Day tomorrow, big day for the council and big day for 7 new Australian citizens, which I have the honour of conducting that ceremony. I'm not sure quite what the final arrangement is for elected members to be there, but it's my understanding that you're all invited to be there, and it would be very nice to see as many as possible attend. We have capacity for at least 80 plus staff members, etc. So we're well within that at this particular point. And I must say to Pepper, to Steve Nelson, and to blank. Oh, Lorinda, sorry, Lorinda. My memory blank for a moment. They've done an outstanding job in putting this together. It's at the Hewitt Centre tomorrow. We're probably the only council in the region that are conducting breakfast tomorrow on Australia Day. We've stuck to our guns. We did have a fallback position. We filmed all of the presentations here last Monday. And again, that was a great organisation to do all that. We got a grant, by the way, through Australia Day Council to do that. But we've got that in the can. So if we weren't able have our live session, which will be streamed anyway, by the way. We had something to fall back on because it is critically important to those recipients. Also, the Mayor's Inspiration Award, which this year will be going to Bob Arns. Bob's in the Southern Cross Nursing Home, and myself and Bill Adams will be going down to the nursing home after our ceremony tomorrow to present Bob with the award. I can assure you the Arns group were absolutely delighted about this happening to their dad. And I know Marge, Bob's wife, will be there, and Stefan's sister, and that they've put out a media release in relation to that. And Southern Cross Homes are also having their media people there as well. So this is a big deal, and the big deal is for Bob, and that's what it's about. But I think we've really hit a nerve with Bob to be recognised after all these years, the work that he's put into this region and the community in a selfless way, and to see now from a humble beginning of a blacksmith shop to an organisation now that employs over 1,000 people. That's an extraordinary turnaround in a relatively short period. So it's great, and they have been very good to work with in all of this, and very delighted that Bob's been acknowledged. So that's going to happen tomorrow. And I must not forget, Terry, to take that award with me tonight. Can we have a look at it if you've got it around anywhere? Is it handy? Oh, okay. Yeah. Terry did some great work in putting the certificate together and framed a lovely background. It looks absolutely stunning. And I think I'll be very happy with that. All right. Councillors, are there any reports from elected members? Anything to report at this point? If not, we'll move on. Tonight we don't have any deputations or presentations, probably the first time in many months that that's happened. And we have no adjourned business. We have business arising. We start on the 24th of September 19. 7th of January 21. Councillor Simon?
If I may, point 13.1.1, I read that there's a letter being sent to Minister Teague late last year, and I was just wondering if this could be distributed to the elected membership for information.
Yes. I've got a copy of that. The question is whether that letter that went to the Minister can be distributed to elected members. The answer to that is yes, it will be distributed.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for the question. Anything further on 27th of January? We'll move on to the 28th. No, we won't. We'll move on to the 27th of July, 24th of August, 31st of August, 28th of September, 26th of October, the 23rd of November, 14th of December. Questions? That's business arising, councillors. It's nice to see the word complete written on those last three as well. We move on to section 10, there's minutes from committee meetings. We don't have any minutes committee meetings to report. And we move on to reports for information. The first one, 11.1, is a temporary closure for the Makers Market. Any questions, councillors? Again, it worked a treat. I think when we can empower our volunteers in our community to be able to do things, all it takes is a little bit of education, and we can save our organisers of some of these special events quite a lot of money. And thanks, Richard, and your team too, for the advice and that you provided. It worked. Moving on to 11.2, the Carrara Marble Quarry mining lease proposal. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Simon?
Yes, I just noticed that at the end it says the council staff intends to provide a submission, and I just wonder what this submission is going to be. Is it going to be supportive or critical, or what is it going to be?
I don't know what to call it with that. I might pass to Lisa if she could just follow that up. I didn't quite catch that, Simon, I'm sorry.
Through the chair, the submission has that will consider their stormwater issues for the site, traffic impact on the existing road network. So we'll be summarising. We've already done that assessment in the background, and there are no concerns whatsoever with what is being proposed, the level of traffic, the impact, and we're satisfied that, as well as the remediation plan that they have in mind. So we'll be just putting in a very basic comment saying that we support the proposal and have no fundamental concerns based on our assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. You happy with that, Councillor Simon? Any further questions on the Marble Lease proposal, Marble Quarry? No? We'll move on. 13.3, Digital Literacy for Seniors Office for the Ageing Well South Australia grant update. I think this is a fantastic program. I'm sure that everyone around this table will agree. And it's great to see that we're working with our older people here that to upskill them and to provide these opportunities. Are there any questions, councillors? So again, well done, Pepper, and you can pass on our regards to Ken. I think it's a terrific program. 11.4 is the Environmental Food Production Areas Review. Questions, councillors? Comments? We'll move on to 11.5, the Light Regional Council Honour Boards. That's the particular board we'll be talking about. And I think that's self-explanatory. Is there any questions, councillors? And welcome to all those people up there also that I didn't acknowledge earlier. Hello, Councillor Jason and Richard and Megan and some initials. Any questions about the Light Regional Council Honour Boards, councillors? If not, we'll move on to the 11.6, review of the grant funding policy. So we're still moving with that. I think we've talked that through pretty well and all come to some agreement that we need to do a bit more in that area. So that's going to happen. Any questions, councillors? If not, we'll move on. We move on now to 11.7, which is the Seppeltsville and Marananga Matters Barossa Charter Project. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Simon.
I was wondering, somewhere in that short report, it says that the Commission has noted the Commission would, however, welcome further dialogue with Council staff on the scope and viability of potential code amendment to enhance this. So this to me sounds like an open door for us to walk in and initiate something. So what are we going to do about this, in my opinion, open door that we should actually engage?
Thank you, Lisa.
Through the chair, I'm not sure it's an open door. I think I can be clear in saying that there will be I don't suspect there'll be any local policy that will be introduced. That is the whole intent behind the Planning and Design Code, to get rid of those specific council-wide type important matters. This is more of a state significant type policy. So if there is anything, it may be around the character preservation district, whether there needs to be any policy improvement around that. It won't be something that is so specific that's targeted to an area or to a particular district of the council. That is something that the Commission hasn't apologised about, and that was something that they made very clear through the whole consultation phase. So whilst we might be able to review things generally and perhaps see if existing policy can apply to existing areas, I can't see that we'll end up with a situation that we'll have policy specifically written for Marananga, Seppeltsfield or Freeling or anything of the like, just as an example.
Thank you, Lisa. You satisfied with that, Councillor Simon?
Oh, I'm not 100% sure, but I was wondering if they are open to a dialogue. So we should keep that dialogue open. That's all I'm trying to say. Is there anything that we can keep this moving? If this is the end of it, then this is the end of it. We should keep moving. But we obviously have some community concerns. There's a lot of stuff that we should and could be doing. So I was wondering how we're going to keep that dialogue going.
Our General Manager of Strategy and Development will be continuing that dialogue. We'll be putting forward what was presented to Council back late last year. So that still is the intent. It's just, I'm trying to clarify that we won't be, I suspect, looking at anything of a specific nature specifically for an area, but definitely they have indicated in their written response that they are happy to look at anything that the council is willing to suggest. So they haven't closed the door, so to speak, but it's more about existing policy.
Thank you, Lisa. Further questions, councillors? If not, we'll move on to 11.8. And once again, a very fine report by Lorinda, and I'm so pleased that we're getting ourselves involved in this matter as well. It's good to see us getting out into the communities and helping some of those people that really do need help. And this is a terrific area that is going to a value add to what's there at present and provide some opportunities for people who are not so fortunate. Any questions on that particular matter? If not, could I have someone move that the reports for information be received and the contents herein noted? Councillor Lim, someone like to second that? Councillor Dean, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to the consensus reports for decision. This will be the last time that we'll be doing this in this particular format, councillors. As you're aware, we resolved at our last meeting that matters that go to committees will all be individually moved and adopted in future rather than en bloc. But at this particular point, these are en bloc, and the first recommendation is that the reports, the agenda and reports presented under item 12, consensus reports for the decision of this ordinary meeting of the Light Regional Council held Tuesday the 21st of January 2022 be received. Someone like to move that way? Thanks, Councillor Simon. Someone like to second that? Councillor Mark, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Councillors, are there any matters that you'd like to question or have withdrawn? Councillor Dean.
Mayor Bill, I note that we've got a revised recommendation for the first item 12.1, which basically corrects some date errors, and also probably noticed that there were some date errors in the body of that report as well, which have been corrected via an email. So I don't know whether we need to withdraw that unless people want to make other discussions about it, but we just need to bear in mind that there's a revised recommendation for that.
Councillors, you're all uncomfortable with that? That the dates in this particular report here
There's mainly only some dates and some times that were slightly, or days that were slightly out of kilter when the table was done.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Simon.
Yes, I'm happy with Councillor Dean's suggestion. I do have another question, though, if I may. It says that budget process instructions and business case template instructions have been distributed, and it says the 7th of January. So either I've missed something or it hasn't happened. So I'm just wondering where we're at with that.
My apologies too. I forgot to introduce our new finance manager, Nigel Graves. Nigel's come with us after an extensive period of in Alice Springs, and we really welcome you down to this part of the world, and hope you'll settle in very quickly, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks, Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. In response to the question that the template hasn't been distributed, it was supposed to have been distributed before my last venture to the Northern Territory to get my family and our possessions. So that will be done fairly soon.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nigel. Any further questions, councillors? Anything else in those reports? Questions? Councillor Sam?
Just an informal question, if I can, Mayor Bill, on 12.2, local government elections. I just note that there's been some changes to declaration of interests and a few other changes under the Election Act that have happened since the past local government election. And I was just, I would like if we could get a report for information on the changes that have happened before we get too close to the pointy end, so that anyone considering running for local government has time to think about those changes and what they look like. So I don't know if it needs a motion or anything that formal, but if I can just foreshadow, that's probably worth having a look at, a report for information on the changes that have happened to the local government elections.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable request, and I think that would sort of go with full support from the council members here, I'm sure, and that will happen. I think the Local Government Association also are not far off releasing their materials too for the forthcoming election. So in us preparing what we think we need, we'll need to see what their ideas are as well. But that will happen. Thank you, Councillor Sam. Councillor Simon?
Yes, through the chair. I want to make some comments again for the 12.2. I was noticing that we are going to align our promotions with the promotions with the LGA, with their promotional material and all that. But then, as noted as well, that in the report it said that's going to be after the federal election, which is by the latest the 21st of May. And to me, that's just way too late. I was just wondering, couldn't we just put something on our website like straight away? A link to the electoral commission and .sa.gov website, and there's a perfect page at elections, council elections. It explains everything you need to know, the dates. You can find any information you'll ever want. Because if you go on our council website right now, the thing that pops, the first thing you see is a banner of COVID-19. That's fair enough. The next thing you see is, let's talk about playgrounds. I was like, that's fair enough, but I reckon we could have a banner saying, the elections are coming up in November, get involved. Click this link and inform yourself. I don't know why we can't do it just straight away. We can still align our promotions later with what the LGA does and everything else, and that's fair enough. But I want something right now, because people need time for these decisions to get involved, to make their minds up. Am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? All this sort of stuff. And some people might not even be on the electoral roll, on the special electoral roll, and then they have to, by July, that's close. That's just very close. Time flies fast. So I reckon we should just put something straight away on our website, and yeah, it doesn't cost anything. It's the easiest thing to do. It's the first thing when somebody goes on our website, have some
I
progress.
can see a few people nodding their head. That's a very reasonable request, and that's a can do, and that's a will do.
Okay.
That will happen. Richard Michael?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, very well.
Yeah, in answer to Councillor Simon's query, the answer is yes. There's a lot of work that's happening in the background, and some of it is related to the closure of the State House of Assembly roll. So that in itself will pick up the majority of those people that already don't appear on the state roll. As you may know, the state roll is used for the basis of the council election voting process. The other part to that is a thing called the council roll. So those sole owners, partnerships, companies, etc., that have a right to a property franchise. So a significant amount of work will be happening in the background between about now and the end of May to issue letters to all of those people that fit that criteria, so that they're enabled to place themselves on the council roll separately to the House of Assembly roll. So I think the point of the report issued by Carrie and Lorinda was that the majority of the hard sell part of the election process, if you will, won't be done until the LGA and the Electoral Commission and the state government go through all of their processes, and we get issued with the various election pacts. So certainly we can do something outside of that. But what we're saying is the major thrust of our campaign, if you will, ought to be aligned to those sector-wide materials. But certainly there's a large amount of work happening in the background, and voters and ratepayers will be contacted, many of them individually, prior to the close of the roll. I hope that helps.
Just a question, Richard, and thank you for that. For non-resident ratepayers, you said you're suggesting that in businesses, a letter will be going out to them to encourage them to register on the roll.
That's right.
Would it be possible for elected members to get a copy of that letter so we know what's been sent out? We know what the word is. It's a grey area for a lot of people that don't quite understand that if you've got property or a business in a community and you're paying rates, you can vote. And many, many businesses aren't aware of that. So it's something that we can, as council members, encourage. So if we can see that letter that goes out, that will give us some background to be able to talk to people about that. So that shouldn't be too much trouble.
Yeah, no, that'll be fine, Mr. Mayor. Happy to do that.
No, that's good. And I've seen Pepper nodding earlier about the Facebook page and maybe an update on all of that. So we can do that. So hopefully we'll start the ball rolling with the election campaign. And I do agree, we've got to give people a bit of notice. It's not top of mind to most people. So
through you, Mr. Mayor, general comment. Of course, the predicament that the local government sector faces this year, in particular, is that we follow the all-consuming state and federal elections, and it's unfortunate, but by the time November comes around, there could be a little bit of election overload. But certainly we'll do our bit in trying to market the local government election. Over to you.
Well, I think it's my role, and I think all of our roles, I suppose, to get out there and give people a good reason to vote for this council and its members. So we've got to do that as often as possibly can. So we're all sitting here this time next year. But thanks for that, Richard. Are there any further questions or comments, councillors? No, that's it. Councillors, if there are no more questions in relation to those 5 matters, recommend Councillor Simon.
Excuse me, there's one more, just a short point. I think, first of all, the planning delegations update 12.4. I'm not sure how Richard can do it, but that's 180 pages. I couldn't read all of that.
No.
I'm sure none of you have. That's just mind-boggling. So that's basically all I wanted to say. Thanks, Richard.
Yeah, I think Councillor Simon, and I'm sure some of the planners might agree, I think planning is a black art. It really is. And I think those delegations were something a bit special. And I think poor old Lisa and her team would have been throwing a fit to see all that and having to go through that. But that's part of the process.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just comment, I think the thanks ought to go to Lisa Sapio in perusing the bulk of these. I think she spent a couple of late nights doing this. I don't want to take credit where it's not due.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. And thank you, Lisa. It was like a mini phone books in the appendices. It's crazy. Councillor Simon.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa, very much for that. Yeah. The other question, though, is in the history section, it says a review of council delegations is undertaken annually. The last annual review was delivered the 28th of September 2021. That's like 4 months ago. Why are we reviewing it already?
I think it's a different set of delegations. Am I correct in saying that, Lisa?
Through the chair, as legislation changes, as new provisions come on board or there's any alterations, those delegations need to be largely amended immediately, because if we start to operate outside of those delegations, it actually can affect our ability to make decisions as delegated officers. So you potentially will see probably another 4 or 5 iterations of the PDI Act this year.
Yeah, backing Lisa up there, Mr. Mayor. the Act clearly states that we are to amend at least once a year, and we do that. And Councillor Simon's dead right. The last annual review, or what we classed as the annual review, occurred recently. But in recent years, our practice has been, as Lisa stated, and that is that once legislation changes, we update the delegations at the time, so we remain current with the legislation of the day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Lisa, for your response also. I guess it's that's the practice, and that's what we just got to put up with, but it does seem like an extraordinary amount of work when you multiply it by 68 councils. It's a lot of man hours to change a few delegations, but that's the Planning Act, I guess, so that's what we've got to work with. Any further questions, councillors? If not, our recommendation 2, that the reports of the meeting of the Light Regional Council held Tuesday the 25th of January 2022 and the associated recommendations as set out below under item 12, consensus reports for decision be adopted. Someone like to move that way? Councillor Sam and Councillor Mark, all those in favour? Those against, that's okay. Thank you, councillors. We move on now to 12.1, which is the 2022. Oh, sorry, we adopted. Of course we did. Section 13, councillors, reports for decision. The first one, this is a lot of pleasure to present this report, I might add.
I'll declare an interest.
Thank you, Brian. This 13.1 is a CEO performance review summary report. And I've seen a few of these in my council career, which dates back a little bit. But I would suggest that this is probably the best I've seen from any review or summary report. I might call on June if she's available to perhaps guide us through this.
Through the chair, thank you, Mayor Bill. And the information provided within this report was obtained from Rob Wallace, who actually undertook the performance review. So he provided me just with a summary of the questionnaires. And there was no names or information that would lead to identifying the participants in the survey, but from that I was just able to put together a summary of the questionnaire, the results, just at the very high level, and just also the KPI, I guess, suggestion for next year's performance review as well. Brian and Rob Wallace, they met and they've just put some forward for council's consideration. So basically, the report that Rob provided just stated that summarised that CEO's performance was very good.
Yeah, thank you, June. I must say when I looked through, I had a long meeting with Rob Wallace, and I quite enjoyed his style. I thought he was extremely well briefed, and he also understands his industry particularly well, and very experienced. And I enjoyed my time with him, which was probably over an hour. Just looking at some of the key projects that Brian's been involved with, my eyes started to water. You know, it's been quite incredible what we've done in this particular period. So, you know, we've got a lot to be proud of, and I think we've got an extremely capable CEO that has kept this ship stable. When you look at all of the basic things that show good management, is retaining staff, empowering staff, all of those things that he's been able to do this and do that particularly well. Empowering staff is a big one as well, and you know, and not scared to put the hard project on the table either for us to have a look at. And sometimes there it takes your breath away as well when you see what is possibly involved. But when you look back on some of these things which were a little bit out there, we've achieved them. I mean, the Roseworthy project probably was case in point. I mean, whoever thought, and the knockers were out there, they were all over the place, that 11 years ago, when that first began with sticky things on the wall at the Roseworthy Institute building there. I don't think it's an institute, that little building in Roseworthy at a community meeting, that we'd end up with what we've got in 10 years later, and in the manner that it's been put together, and the quality of the product as well. That was just a dream, but it came true. And you know, and I think many of these other things here that we look at are just extraordinary things that we've been very lucky that we've had someone that has been prepared to take the responsibility of those projects, because that's where it ends up, right there. And if they fail, that's the bloke here that's in the gun. So you know, I think we're very fortunate, and I'd like to feel that our council elected body feel exactly the same way as I do. Any questions or comments, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Lynn. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Dean. Further questions or comments, councillors? Certainly.
Recommendation 1, which says endorse the CEO Performance Review Summary Report 2021 and acknowledges the outstanding performance result for the Chief Executive Officer's 2021 review. Now, I might be picky, but I would like to see the adjective outstanding left out, and I have reasons for that. I can go into them if you wish. Perhaps in summary, I would say that there are a number of loose ends which I think could have been attended to, which weren't, and that's my view.
Anyone like to support that view? Councillor David?
Yeah, I think there's still a few projects where the jury's still out on the result of how they're going to turn out. So I can see where Councillor Kennelly's coming from. So, yeah, I still think the jury's out in some areas.
Any further comment in relation to that word? I think there'll always be outstanding matters, no matter who is sitting in the chair there. That's how councils operate. There's always something that hasn't been done that should be done. Always, it's it's a big project that we manage. You know, like 12,000 kilometres of 1,200 kilometres of road network, for example. Just that alone. So there's always something. There's always a pothole somewhere. But I think you can only go by what has actually been achieved. And that's why that word's there, because the achievements are only one way you can explain it. Is outstanding. Councillor Simon?
Yeah, I think, outstanding is a pretty relative word. So I can safely say that his performance was outstanding. So I don't think it's a bit of a moot point to try to change anything because of a word. So.
Thank you, Councillor Simon. Any further questions or comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation. Would someone like to move that way?
If I may clarify through the chair, was Councillor Kennelly moving a motion to omit the word outstanding, and was that seconded? Is that where we are, or was it just conjecture?
Yes, I would move it as an amendment to the motion.
And that was that what the second was, or was that just comment? Yes, I just wanted to clarify before we get to the voting stage, if I may.
So you're moving that as a motion, Councillor?
Yes, please.
As an amendment. The motion be moved and seconded, moved by Councillor Net, seconded by me.
Yep.
So, Councillor Kennelly moving an amendment.
Right. And Councillor David is going to second that. So that becomes the motion. We'll vote on that first vote. But that word outstanding is removed from the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's lost. We go back to the original recommendations, 1 and 2. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Go and get Brian for dungeon. G'day, Darby, didn't recognise you over there. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Feeling better?
Yeah, very much so.
Oh, you look well. That's good. Pleased to hear. Cheers, Kath. See you, Grant. Well, Brian, it's been good to know you. Congratulations, Brian. I think in anyone's language, that's an absolutely extraordinary performance appraisal and done by a person with a great deal of experience. And I was saying to the elected members that I spent probably over an hour with him, and he certainly has a lot of local government background, and he's talked to and interviewed many CEOs. And he knows his subject. So congratulations and welcome to the future.
Thank you.
13.2, we're down to the Freeling Town Centre activation. This is great, great news, and I'm sure Mark and Councillor Annette would be pretty pleased with all this too. It's so good to sort of see Freeling on the move, and it's and I'm sure when the Light Farm Fair event takes place a little bit later in the year, in April, that will really liven Freeling up as well. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm not speaking into the microphone. Well, I always forget about the poor people up there that can't afford the bus ride into town. But never mind. So it's really good to see Freeling on the move, and I'm sure this report here is really a report for information, I suppose, in lots of respects, but there is a couple of recommendations there. Any comments? Councillor Simon?
If I can first ask, because in this, the second recommendation says that initial investigation into operating Traeger Lane South between Hanson Street and the Freeling Institute. Since I do own a property on Grey Street that backs to Traeger Lane, and that's sort of my access into my car park, I'm wondering if it could be a perceived conflict of interest if I vote for this. However, my question is, because I do have some comments that I would like to make, is it possible to make those comments and then excuse myself for the vote or something like that?
I think it's your call, but my experience, I would.
Yeah, I'd like to do that if that's possible.
I think it's better on the safe side.
Yeah.
But,
so,
thanks for raising it.
So can I make a comment then?
Certainly.
So in the Freeling Town Centre activation report 2 by Andrew Chown, that's been fairly recent. It says in there, if I can find it right here, it says stakeholder engagement, and it says targeted town centre stakeholder engagement. Now, I pretty much know every single person that owns property or runs businesses in that centre, like in that yellow area, and to all my knowledge, none of these people have been engaged with. So I just wonder if this engagement really just boils down to talking with the developer, because really, if you read that report, the first thing it actually says after stakeholder engagement, targeted town centre stakeholder engagement, council has been approached by the developer. So, I mean, that hardly sounds like a targeted stakeholder engagement to me. So I just wonder if I have missed being engaged, or if it was really just talks between the developer and the people from URPS.
Any response to that, Lisa?
Through the chair, I'm not aware that any official engagement has been conducted to date. That report was just commissioned in order to start the ball rolling, so to speak. And after that, and now that after tonight's endorsement, we'll be able to officially go through and start a communication strategy and an engagement strategy.
However, if I may, in the report itself, it says it has right at, I don't know what page that is, page 2, actually, right at the beginning, under the introduction, it's got a little diagram saying what was happened, and it says background review, demand analysis, key stakeholder meeting, internal options and opportunities workshop, the findings and recommendations report, and then we are here. So if looking at this report, it seems like all these other things has happened. Now this is the findings and recommendations report. And then if you read this entire report, which I obviously did, it says that, you know, because of the engagement, all these points have been raised. So I'm just wondering again if these points have been raised by Mr. Bolperio or, you know, by anyone else. Because, like I said, the guy that owns the Freeling Hotel, he hasn't been engaged. People that owns the shops on Hanson Reed haven't been engaged. That, like I said, any of these people, as far as I know, have not been asked anything.
Yes, just through the chair. What is the exact page number of the agenda? Just so Lisa and I can be clear, because what we believe is the community consultation may have been the 2005 consultation, and we would be waiting for this to be adopted to do the 2022 consultation. But we just want to make sure that we're clear as well.
Yes, so what I'm looking at is just the report. It's in the attachment. I think it's called report to, I'll go back to the front. Look, so it's called attachment to Freeling Town Centre activation. And that's the report that got commissioned. Oh no, actually, sorry. Where was it? Oh, maybe this is the old report, but it says.
Through the chair.
It says it's been written by Andrew Chine and amended that late last year. It's quite possible that I'm confused with these reports. That's, yeah, that's probably what happens here, but.
Councillor Mann.
It really doesn't have anything to do with what's happening now. This is early days in the new framework, in my opinion, and so therefore that 2005 was only a basis of what the ideas of what they were going to do, but it's all changed and it's early days and things are moving along very fast in the main street. I can't explain it all, but I just think that we have to go along with it now, and I believe Brian may have spoken with the developer at some stage too. Did you?
Yeah.
Yes, and could you?
I think if I could just make a comment, I think what Councillor Simon is referring to is page 4, 3.1. where it says targeted town centre statement engagement. And
yes,
I think
that's correct.
The key word there is targeted. So what happened was the supermarket developer approached the council about the supermarket development and how that will have an impact on the Freeling Centre. And as a result, management reviewed the 2005 report and engaged ERPS to do that. And I think what ERPS is referring to here is where they say targeted town centre stakeholder engagement. I think they're referring to the supermarket developer and the occupier of the current hotel. I don't know whether they went any wider than that. And I think that's what Councillor Simon's raising, that it's been a targeted stakeholder engagement. It hasn't gone on a wide engagement, not yet anyway.
But through the chair, can I just ask a question on that as well? The engagement consultation will probably come once they come back to us with their ideas. I mean, they talked about doing things in the railway yard reserve and that was in 2011. A lot of those things are gone by the board because it's all a new ball game. Am I right or not?
Yeah, things have changed dramatically since those times.
Yes, yeah. So there hasn't been that consultation that was done the first time. I mean, that was actually done and nothing resulted in it. And then when the supermarket came on the thing, we had to look at, well, I believe we agreed to the supermarket with the amount of car spaces, car parking spaces that are there on the plan. I think, Lisa, that was agreed to. But Carlo, the developer, seems to want to have more car spacing. He wants to get into that hotel yard, and that's an ongoing thing between the owner and him. And it really, it's not up to us to make a comment whether the hotel should give him extra land. I don't know if I've got that right or not.
Yeah, through the chair, there are a number of things that are occurring at the moment, discussions, and we've also brought the Traeger Lane on that northern side of Hanson Street, and that's been discussed here. But of course, that is just sitting in abeyance at the moment, while a range of other things occur. The 2005 report that was done in the engagement strategy at the time was quite comprehensive. And essentially what we've done is done an internal review of that document, looked at how relevant it is today, and tried to get a new document that really just brings it back onto the table so we can start consulting and sharing that information with people and landowners and businesses around that area so people can see where we're going now, given that document is 16, 17 years old. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it totally answers it. I mean, it answers it, and I have nothing against these reports. They're excellent, and I have no objection. The only thing I question is the fact that the report is called findings and recommendations. So URPS is already making its recommendations, right? In this report, that's the recommendations they're giving to us. And if somebody reads this report without, well, enough background, you'd think there's been engagements happened, and then these are the recommendations correlating all the stuff, or correlating all the stuff from 2005, going through it again, having some more engagement, and this is the recommendations that we have now. Whereas this stakeholder engagement has not happened, other than we've talked with the developer. The developer wants more car parking, the developer obviously wants street trees, the developer wants Traeger Lane, all this sort of stuff. Because it all is good for him. So to me, it just seems it's very, reading this, it just looks like we've talked to the developer said we want this, 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 and this is on other recommendations. And I think that's a wrong view. But this report surely looks like that if you read it properly. I think that's my solution.
Through the chair, can I just make another comment?
Certainly.
I believe that the developer has been talking to the planners with regard to the building on the block of land opposite the Foodland. And I haven't discussed that with any of you because it's got nothing to do with me, but he has told me that there's reasons, and when you look at this thing and saying how you want to get it Traeger Lane into the Institute car park, I haven't discussed any of that with him, and it's got nothing to do, but he did tell me that. So that's another thing that is going to open up the main street terrifically with whatever he is putting in that building.
Thanks, Councillor Annette. Further questions, councillors, or comments? If not, I'm not sure of your conflict of interest or not.
Yeah, no, I'll leave the chamber. Okay, yeah.
If I could make a comment, I think what Councillor Simon has highlighted here is that there probably should have been another step in this process, that we received the report, but that the Chief Executive, who may delegate to relevant staff, undertake a wider stakeholder engagement on the Freeling Town Centre activation, which is the total report, which deals with retail and service development. It deals with tourism development opportunities, retail and commercial growth opportunities. So it's much wider than just the supermarket precinct.
Yeah.
Right. So I think to undertake a wider stakeholder engagement on the Freeling Town Centre activation would be sensible to get community awareness, and then authorise the CEO to advance those other dot points because they are in the report, which will go out for stakeholder engagement, but there is a sense of urgency about them.
Well, are we looking for a further dot point there to cover that?
The recommendation would be number 1 as read, number 2 would become number 3, and a new number 2 would be that the CEO, who may delegate to relevant staff, undertake a wider stakeholder engagement on the Freeling Town Centre activation.
Through the chair, so really I think what Councillor Sellers highlighting is that on Traeger Lane South, there are stakeholders there, and so you've got the news restaurant that's opening on the 31st as that land owner and Mr. Yulee, and then you've got Simon's back of his block adjoining to that too. So you've got, I understand what he's saying. Yeah, and he hasn't been consulted.
Well, Brian's.
So now you put that right.
Covers off on that.
Yeah.
It covers off on that because it says the CEO can delegate blah blah for a wider stakeholder engagement.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Comfortable with that, councillors? That makes a lot of sense.
Lisa, you right with that?
The chair, Brian, just given I wasn't the author and I'm just trying to manage the environment, I believe that if we add the community consultation right now, it may be remiss because part 2 is only an investigation. It's quite localised. It's how we'll be dealing with that fragment of that portion of that particular roadway. We're not looking at that broader initiatives that are short, medium and long term that this report has highlighted. So I actually think there's value in maintaining the recommendation as is and ask for further clarity through a subsequent report with Craig to explain the engagement process, because currently we shouldn't be engaging when we haven't endorsed, we're investigating. We may elect not to do it, we may elect to do it, if I may offer that advice.
Comfortable with that, councillors? Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I also understood that the feeling to do some more community engagement in wider, it's a good idea too. But also, if the timing's not right, we probably have to do it again anyway.
So, Mr. Mayor, to pick up Lisa's advice, number 2 would then read that the CEO, who may delegate to a relevant staff, provide a report on a wider stakeholder engagement on the Freeling Town Centre activation. And then number 3 would read as listed to advance.
So that report would include how that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Comfortable with that, councillors? Any questions in relation to Councillor David?
I think what Brian's suggesting is a very good move because it shows that we're being open and transparent and up to date with what's currently happening. So I think it's a good move.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor David. Any further questions or comments? Well, if not, with the addition of those words and that into what point or recommendation 2, do I have a movement? Councillor Mark and Councillor David. Any further questions or comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thanks, councillors. That's a good discussion and a good outcome. .3, councillors, private code amendment, Freeling West. This is interesting thought, interesting development, and one that raises a few memories. Certainly.
This actually came a long time ago, 10 years ago.
Yep.
And the fact that they have now engaged, the developer has now engaged Masterplan to do their own report. They have to do it all. It doesn't come back to us now. It goes to them, and they have to sort it out. 10 years ago, they had a meeting in the Freeling Institute, which turned into a shocking debacle. It was really dreadful, and so they just dropped it all. If you look at the planning, issue there, Masterplan will have to, if I understand this right, Lisa, Masterplan had to put it all together before it goes anywhere. And then does it come to us before it goes to Adelaide, or what, under the new planning rules?
You're absolutely correct. It's very different to what happened under the previous legislation, where it could be either a ministerial-led development plan amendment or council initiated. With the new code, there are a number of proponents now that can actually initiate a code amendment. Council is one, the minister is one, the commission is one, a private landowner is one, and then a relevant stakeholder such as SA Water or someone who has rights over land. So they're the number of different proponents that can now initiate a code amendment. But there is always a process that, regardless if the landowner wants to initiate it, they must come to council in the first instance and advise us. So this is step one in their process. They've officially advised council, they've lodged it with the commission. So this is our opportunity now to respond and to say to the minister, well, this is what we think, this is what would need to be addressed as a minimum, and it gives us that opportunity to have that conversation with the commission. They need to have regard to it. But now the proponent is running that entire process from the beginning to the end, including community engagement, running the process, writing the documents, doing the investigations. The council still has a role to play in providing commentary, and the commission will still have regard to our involvement.
Yeah, thank you.
Through the chair, also, I spoke to Craig about this yesterday, and Craig said that that he has given them every bit of information that we had, and that they've got that, they know what has happened before, master plan. Is it Burns, Rob Burns, or I can't think of his name.
Graham Burns from Master Plan.
Yeah, Graham Burns is doing it. So I think that we just have to sit tight now and wait.
I can recall that night very, very well indeed. Channel 7 were there also. There was 169 people there that night, and it was quite frightening to chair that meeting. And they were passionate. They were really quite angry about this development, and they got edged on by, I don't know who, but I think there was also a petition that had something like 600 signatures on it as well. So there was a great groundswell of people saying they didn't want it. But council, regrettably, were in a position where we had no choice but to go through that process, where what Lisa's saying now, of course, that we don't have to do that. So thank goodness that won't happen again. Master Plan have to undertake all of that public consultation, public meetings, and all of those sorts of things. And I'm sure they've done it before, but it does take that onus away from us as a council to have to try and manage that situation. You would like to think that that wouldn't be anything like it was. I think Freeling has changed quite dramatically in that time in terms of its environment and what's happening down there and this expansion that's happened. And there may be quite a bit of sympathy for extra residential areas to be able to be available for people to live. I don't know. And
But we don't
Because,
have to, we don't have to go down that anymore,
We
so
don't have to
that's.
find out, the master plan do. So, I guess the report has got the recommendations there that are telling us, what tells us all about what's happening and how it's going to happen. But we don't have to get too concerned about it at this particular point because there's no further action for us to have to undertake at this point. Yes, Simon.
If I can make a comment. So if I understand this correct, Lisa, so the council has only an advisory role to the commission. So we can only sort of say, this is how we like to see, or this is our opinion about it and that sort of stuff, but we have no decision-making role anymore.
None whatsoever, councillor, none whatsoever.
So in this case, the recommendation just said that we are providing background information based upon the content of this report. So I might be wrong, but sometimes it seems that I have to start with this. So how are we going to weigh this response? Is there any weighing in this response? Because I think it's quite important. If he's on a glowing about anything is a great idea, that could weigh that outcome one way. If he's saying, oh, this is a terrible idea, we don't want anything to do with it, that could weigh it the other way. So are we just going to be entirely neutral about it, or how is our response going to look like?
So our response will be to the proponent, all the issues that we've identified. So there are stormwater, there are transport considerations, there are interface considerations. There are only a few of the many concerns that we have at this stage. I mean, there are ways you can ameliorate them. What's different to 10 years ago is that the area they were seeking to rezone was substantially larger, included more farming land. This is a somewhat scaled back proposal. So this is us giving back information to the proponent that we would ask the commission to have regard to. So after this process, and once they actually furnish this information, create the actual code amendment, it goes out on official consultation. The council, just like any other stakeholder or any person who has an interest, can make a submission to the commission. That is our opportunity. If we have fundamental concern, if we have only some concerns, which they might be of an infrastructure basis, we can tailor our comments according to that. So we have that opportunity through the official consultation process. We don't have an extra time. We just get to now do that as part of the consultation process that will follow.
Thank you, Lisa. I think that's covered very, 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 very well. Thank you. Further questions, councillors? Councillor Peter?
I have a comment about the recommendation. First part of the recommendation, acknowledging the Walton Rural Proprietary Limited proposal to lodge a code amendment. Now, I would hope that it's just that we as a council are saying to Walton Rural, if you wish to lodge a code amendment affecting the nominated land, go ahead. We're not in any way aligning ourselves.
That's right.
So we remain as a council neutral.
That's correct. Exactly what Lisa just explained.
Good.
That's correct.
And through the chair, if you look at the plan of it, of what they wanted to do, what they want to do, that land at the top of the page where the red marking is, that backs onto the units that are up at the top end of the town, and we have just we've just sold blocks off there. You know that, Lisa, we've sold blocks off, and the water comes through under the railway line and into that block. So that is one of my concerns, that if they want to turn it into residential, they're going to have to address that. And do we need to make comment? Because when the water goes under the railway line, it runs right through that. You can see there's a drain there, and it runs right through. And so that's something that I think we need to discuss.
That's correct, but that comes up when we're invited to make a submission.
Yes. I'm
That's
just
the
making
information that we put in that submission.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Councillor Lynn. Further questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the recommendations. I'd like to move that way.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Lynn. So I second that. Councillor Mark, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for providing that background and that reassurance too that we're taking a quite a different role in this particular development. Moving on, councillors, to 13.4. This is the public health plan draft. It seems to be around forever, but it's certainly getting closer to being a reality. And I do commend the work of Craig and his team. I can't remember when it was, but I know Craig and myself did go to a workshop down in Gawler, middle of last year, I think it was, not even before, to talk about this one step. Are there any questions or comments, councillors? If not, I'll put recommendations on the top of page 55. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bill, do you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. No, I attended the last meeting with Craig, and it's all pretty straightforward. It's just the next step. So I'd like to move the recommendation if I can, Bill.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bill. That's right. I should have mentioned you were there as well.
Yeah.
Move, Councillor Bill. Would someone like to second that? No, Councillor Dean. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thanks, councillors. Thanks, Councillor Bill. Moving on now to, where are we? Nearly finished. Cycling home. This is an absolute crack of a report as well. 13.5, councillors, and I really must thank Darby and Simon, the extraordinary body of work that you've put in over a long period to get this project to this stage where we're at. We do understand that we were a little unfortunate not to be funded in the first round of the Building Better Regions Fund, but we also got some very strong advice to put that proposal forward again and strengthen it in certain areas. And this time it might be a different scenario.
Through the chair, there's a spelling error under attachment 3. It's Wine Trail.
Under attachment 3, we'll pick up on that. But councillors, are there any questions you would like to raise in relation to this matter? Simon, Councillor Simon.
Yes, just a recommendation number 4. It says that sees council underwrite the proposed state government co-contribution. So if I understand this correctly, that the whole project is around 8 million. 4 million would be government and federal government funded. 1 million is our contribution. So is the underwriting 3 million? Is that what is proposed here?
Yes, through the chair, Councillor Simon, that's broadly correct. So last time around, there was a huge amount of effort that went into lobbying the state government to commit their portion of the funding before the funding bid went in. Despite enormous effort, the letter fell a little bit short of the federal government's requirements. And so we needed to underwrite on the assumption that if state government on awarding the grant had still not committed, we would come back to council and discuss that with council. And so the proposal is the same in this case, in that we're not seeking any more than the $1 million from council at this point. We hope that the state government will commit their portion of the funding before our deadline of February the 10th. But with a state election on the horizon, we're probably not in control of their timelines for making such commitments at the moment. So we've got to be realistic that we might need to underwrite for a period so that we're eligible for that federal government grant, and then take the risk that by the time we get awarded the funding, state government have got their proverbial together and come back with their funding commitments. And so in parallel with all of this work that we're proposing to do is a political advocacy strategy that we've got in the mix for federal and state government, which Brian and myself and Darby and Kyron and others, and Richard Dodson with his very good relationship with Tony Passon MP, will undertake to try and make sure we don't find ourselves in that position where we don't have that state government commitment by the time the federal government commitment comes as well. So it's a bit of a laboured response, so I apologise, but hopefully that makes sense.
Well, the question remains, so what's, sorry.
Councillor Lynn?
You've got the Kapunda Railway goods shed preservation and activation. Have you given any thought to the Freeling goods shed to be included in that? Because that's all in the tourism section through Liz. Have you had a thought about that?
I think that was picked up through the chair. I think it was picked up in an earlier report tonight, implicitly the Freeling Urban Master Plan project. So not forgotten for sure.
No, but not in this.
Not in this bit,
better
no, sorry.
Regions. Okay, all right.
Councillor Simon?
Excuse me for interrupting before. So how big is that risk then?
Sorry?
How big is the risk? I mean, what's the chance of that?
The state government will not fund it.
Yep.
It's always a risk. We've been advocating to them for 3 years now for their portion of this funding. We've been positioning it as good as anyone can position a project, to the point where the state government has now backed away from their 2018 election commitment to build a cycling path from Adelaide to Melbourne, and they're now repositioning for an alternative election commitment. That's what we're trying to position this for. And so that was quite a large election commitment, as you can imagine. And there was not great response from the industry on that, but it takes a while for a government to shift with grace. And so we're trying to work with them on that.
You're being very kind.
Yeah. So yes, there is a risk, but I think we're as well placed as we can be.
Thank you, Councillor Simon. Have we had any thought of speaking to the opposition?
Yes.
And what was the feeling?
That's part of our strategy moving forward to make sure that they're on
Did
board
they
as
give
well.
any sort of indication that they?
I think we've had only early conversations so far on the opposition side, but wanted to get through tonight to make sure council was comfortable with lodging before we go too hard.
Councillor Dean.
Mayor Bill, if I understand Simon correctly, in this we're committing only to the $1 million, and if for some reason we get the application over the line federally and the state government doesn't come to the party, then it comes back to us to decide whether we will proceed with it, underwriting the rest of it ourselves, or is that correct?
Actually, through the chair, I'm actually suggesting that whatever the scenario, given the peculiarities of that risk, that we come back either
Come
way.
back anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
the actual
committing you to putting the application at this stage, and the final decision is made when we determine whether we've been successful or not with that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Further questions, councillors? I think, and thank you for those responses.
And I'd like just like to
That's
thank
fine also.
Harley for his contribution here. Done people work on this, so thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Councillors, there's a series of 5 recommendations on page 64. Someone like to move that way? Councillor Dean? Someone like to second that? Councillor Mark? Councillor Mark? Any further comments or questions? If not, I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thanks, councillors, and thanks, Simon. It's a very, very exciting project, and not just for our region here, but the state. This is going to link up, hopefully, one day from Harndorf to Clare. So we're right in the middle of all of that. So it's well done. Councillors, we're going well tonight. We're quite often not quite through presentations and deputations at this stage, but we're now up to our procedural matters. And the first one is the questions on notice. We don't have any of those. Questions without notice. Councillor David?
I've got a question without notice. We had a latest update from Sevelsfield about what their position is with paying out the water scheme come September 2022, given what's going on with China and the wine market.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Every time we meet with Stephen Trigg and or Warren Randall, we make it clear to them that they're taking it out in that date, and they confirm and reaffirm that that's what they intend to do. They've sent us letters previously to that effect, and there's been absolutely no change whatsoever from their point of view, and that's what's been relayed to us on several occasions.
You might note too in this morning's paper that the Randall Group have also invested now, they've bought Penny Lane. Is it Penny Lane? Penny Hill in and Black Chook down in McLaren Vale. So they're still investing. They're looking for that for the English market and to counteract the Chinese downturn. So good question, Councillor David, and good answer. And I think we can still feel fairly comfortable in the position we're in. Further questions? Oh, Councillor Jason, I've missed you. I'm sorry. You have a question? Sorry, Councillor.
I do, yes. I had a question passed to me about an hour ago, just before I came to the council. It's just in regards to Kapunda Street and basically getting that spray sealed. Going through the conversation as a member, someone said to me that 3 years ago, council promised to have this spray sealed. Obviously, there is to and froing with regards to getting this sealed due to obviously the 5 Shillings estate and the build up and the dig up the road through development. Obviously, they want to know whether it's going to take a couple of years and you're going to get spray sealed, or whether it might take 10 to 20 years before the development kicks in and digs it up and we re-get it tarmac from there. So I'm just asking the question as to where we stand with Kapunda Street and what we're doing at this point.
Thanks, Councillor Jason. Richard.
Yeah, Councillor Jason, I'll have to take that on notice, but I will be able to, I'll circulate a response to all elected members in the next few days. But our plan is certainly not for it to be a long-term solution. We've just got to work out whether we can squeeze a little out of our capital program for 21-22.
No.
16, yeah, prior to winter this year, but we've just got to work out whether we can or can't at the moment.
Not a problem, just so we have an answer one way or the other.
Yep. We'll be notified in the next few days. Thanks, Councillor Jason. Any further questions, Councillor Sam?
If I may, and I apologise if this has been captured through infrastructure or environmental working party. I had a look and I couldn't see it. But I was just wondering if we could get circulated through to elected members the letter that went out to townships and now included in the green bin trial. My understanding is that there's been communication to a number of townships that previously weren't receiving green bins that now are, and that was following a report through to infrastructure. And I just hadn't seen it come back, but I know that that had been circulated to residents. So just ask that we can get a copy of that circulated to elected members, please.
That shouldn't be too difficult. Organise that, Brian? Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Sam. Any further questions about those, Councillor Simon?
Yeah, about last week I sent out an email about the College Road that's sort of in is on a bad condition, or in spots anyway. And Councillor D made an excellent suggestion about that maybe these intersections, instead of just fixing them as they were, they could be fixed with hot mix, and that might solve the problem. I was just wondering if that solution that Councillor Dean suggested is something that we could actually do.
We'd need to take that on notice. The difference in cost of asphalt is quite significant to spray seal, and while a number of our projects at the moment are waiting for asphalt to be done, the location that you had mentioned would unlikely ever receive that style of treatment, simply because it's a bit isolated in terms of turning movements and things like that. So we might see some, and obviously we've seen some damage at that location, but more broadly of putting that as a policy or a change in our IAMP service levels, it would probably be unlikely.
Thank you, Richard. Further questions, Councillor Simon?
If I can ask again, I mean, I don't think the idea was to hot mix the entire road. It was just the intersections, just where the turning occurs. Because if we fix it the same way as it's been made now, it's just going to happen again. And I don't know if that's really going to solve the problem. I was wondering if that's a possibility you do that just in those spots, or I mean, I see that the road to Henley Bridge, Mothervera Road, I think, is getting done as well. I'm not sure if that's a hot mix or spray seal, but there's lots and lots and lots of grain trucks entering from dirt roads onto these roads as well. So the same scenario would happen. I just wonder if you can find a more sustainable solution to these problems.
Thanks, Councillor Simon.
Look, I think what we do see is the Department for Transport roads, which carry a lot more traffic, do hold up to turning movements from isolated unsealed roads. It's generally only in very high turning movements, and I don't think this one is a high turning movement. I think it's just got some peculiarities about it that occurred, as I've explained. Spray sealing a kilometre of road and then having every intersection asphalted would be a significant increase to the service level that would be required under our IAMP, and I'm not sure that you actually get the value out of that increase. So it's a bit of risk versus reward. You may get an isolated failure, and this is one failure over the whole, sort of 50 kilometres of road that we've sealed in the last, a few years or 5 years. So I'm concerned that we have a failure, but I'm not concerned that the method that we've used.
Thank you, Richard. Further questions, Councillor?
I went and had a look at it, and it comes out from Stones Road, and the people, there's only about 3 roads coming onto College Road from actual big farms, and that is one that's coming from a very big farm, Pine something or other, and I'm wondering, could we consider it at infrastructure meeting whether we can just put an apron from Stones Road out onto Roseworthy Road? Could we do that where you know that there's massive machinery coming in and out? Because when it comes out, it screws. And I think, I just wondered whether to follow on to that.
Can your question be that we raise this at the infrastructure meeting?
Yes, yes. Yeah, are you happy with that?
The only thing is that if I go back to the concerns.
This is questions without notice, and the question has been asked and it's been answered. Now we're starting to talk about the answer. I think if we're going to do that, we need to bring it up at the appropriate time.
Yes.
So, any further questions without notice? If not, we have no motions on notice, then we have no motions without notice, and we have no confidential items. For the first time I can't remember. Councillor Sam?
Just before the meeting closed, if I could just make a personal statement. I think most people in the room know now anyway, but beginning in July, we're going to have a baby, which is very exciting. So I think very thoughtful of me to give birth just before caretaker. The timing is quite nice. So just a personal statement that you're expecting a baby in early July, which is, very excited, very welcome news.
Congratulations, Councillor Sam. That's wonderful news. It really is. It's very exciting for you, and I hope it's not going to affect your re-election campaign. They'll be electing one in a bit, won't they? No, well done, and that's excellent. Any further questions from the gallery up there? From the West Coast? Any of the staff members?
He's gone to have tea.
Bill's gone fishing. Councillor, just before we close the meeting, I'd like to just remind you of our workshop on the 8th of February, a very important one. And, we talked about some infrastructure changes that we might like to see. And on this particular day, will give us an opportunity to talk about the IAMP. Richard and his staff are quite correct in that's their Bible. That's what they go on, the service levels and all of that. The elected members, of course, are in a position where we can change that, given the right information, etc. But it gives us that opportunity. And this is a sort of occasion where we can look at all of the things in a holistic sort of way, what we do as a council and what we want to do and how we might be able to make some changes where we think they're necessary. So I'm really appealing to everybody to try and be there on that day. I know it's a great chunk out of your week at taking a day, but it'd be a very valuable exercise for all of us. So now thanks to Richard and the team for organising it as well. I think it'll be a well organised day and I'm sure we'll get a lot from it. So thank you, councillors, and I can now declare the meeting closed and invite you all to come in for our first meal for the 22 year. And remind you about Australia Day tomorrow morning. It will be live streamed also for those who can't make it down there, if you want to have a look at it. Oh, and everybody up there, Councillor Jason and staff members. Thank you. Oh, well,